Hey Brett, during this video we're gonna like be showing some of these catches and stuff.
Yep.
I was trying to think that like that.
You can't say that.
I can't. No, literally don't put that in the video. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. We appreciate you guys sliding back in with us. Today I'm gonna talk about my hair jig setup. You know, I got a lot of questions after Lake Chickamauga. How I fish a hair jig, why you fish a hair jig, is a hair jig an OG bait. So we're gonna dive right into the hair jig video. So we just got done with the Lake Chickamauga event, finished up like 14th. I thought it was 12th, but I forgot they took like 2 guys that advanced on, so we finished 14th place. Should have made the top 10 championship day. I ended up losing a fish late in the day. It was kind of my fault, I guess you would say. I didn't really hook him long time, but I hooked up and it was like, and come off. But I ended up catching 3 7-pounders in the tournament. Caught all of them on a hair jig. So I'm gonna dive into why I throw a hair jig, what makes them bite a hair jig, why big fish like a hair jig, what is it imitating, the weights of it, the line size, the rod setup, the reel ratio. So for me, we talking about me. Now, other guys that throw hair jigs, Van Dam, Joe Lee, all them guys, there was a lot of guys throwing hair jigs in this event, in the Chickamauga event. And for me, why I throw a hair jig, it is a very subtle bait, okay? So we were at Lake Chickamauga, and I'm out there idling around, and you know, I'm finding schools of fish. They're just now getting out there. They're pretty fresh. They've kind of been beat on a little bit. They've seen crankbaits. They've seen swim baits. They've seen big worms. I don't know if they've seen that Guggen Baits big worm, the Slim Shake, but they've seen big worms. And I caught a few on a big worm. But for me, my big fish bait was a hair jig last week. It's not, I guess you would say it isn't really a sneaky deal no more, because if you research back, my man J-Dub ended up winning on Chickamauga with a hair jig like 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever how long ago it was. But like, a hair jig is not a sneaky bait. It's just a very subtle bait. It has been thrown for a long time. What makes a hair jig so appealing to these bass? I mean, it's pretty a do-nothing bait. I mean, look at that. Don't even put a trailer on there. It's just do-nothing bait. But I think that's why it's so good. The main reason I was throwing a hair jig at Lake Chickamauga was pressure, okay? So a lot of these fish, they've been chunked at, people have been fishing them, there's literally boats on them. There's boats on them right now. Like today we're on Lake Mitchell, but I still got a hair jig tied on because I catch spotted bass on it. This bait is very good in high pressure situations. It's very subtle, it's not loud, it does not have a big flopping tail for a shad, and it creates a reaction bite, okay? And when I say that, I've said this analogy several times before. If you had a ribeye steak, okay, and y'all know what I'm gonna say, so I'm gonna hook a ribeye steak on here, and I'm gonna hop up here, and I'm gonna cling my ribeye steak out there between 10 dogs, 10, not puppy dogs, I'm talking about bulldogs, and I start reeling it down through there, and I got the steak coming along, and all them dogs may be asleep, but one of them does not want the other one to get the steak. That's the same analogy. That's a goofy analogy, but that's exactly what they're doing. So that's how this hair jig is. It's very subtle. It gets a reaction strike. When one of them starts to kind of go after it, the other one's like, dude, no, I gotta get him. Boom, got him. So that's one reason I throw this bait, is it causes a reaction strike from these fish. Another reason, it has a big profile. Okay, that's a bigger one. This is a 3/4 ounce hair jig. It has a lot quicker fall. I was throwing this bait. I was throwing just like a generic, this is a hand-tied hair jig, buck hair. You know, this is, I don't even know what kind of hair is on this one. I have no clue. And this is just like your traditional preacher jig, a little bit smaller. So the technique of what I was throwing it and what I was doing was, you see the traditional technique of throwing your bait out there, letting it hit bottom. As soon as it hits bottom, reel 3 or 4 times, kill it. Reel 3 or 4 times, kill it. Okay, that works great. That works awesome. But I have noticed when you're throwing these hair jigs, you kind of need to change up your cadence, okay? And what a cadence is just basically how every time you reel, you may reel him 4, 5, 6 times. You may reel him 10 times. You may reel him 1 time and let him sit there. So once you figured out kind of the recipe of what these fish were wanting versus what can I do different that someone else is not doing. So for me, I was throwing it out there, and I really would just reel it about 4 or 5 times. But the key was letting him fall on slack line. Maybe lift your rod back down just a little bit. Let him fall. You have to have this bait fall straight down, fast as it can, because that's what's going to trigger those fish to come out and eat it. Because I'm getting soaking wet from the stinking hair jig. Unreal. All right, so my setup for my hair jigs, this is a 3/4 ounce. I was throwing a 5/8 ounce, 5/8, 3/4. This is a little bit smaller, and I didn't throw him up there at Chick, but this is like a half, okay? 15-pound Seaguar Invis X line. You can throw 10, 12. To be honest, I think 10 is a lot better than any of them, because you get that really natural flow with that hair jig, okay? When you reel him, I mean, it's very, very natural. You don't have a lot of line and, you know, dragging him down, slowing him down. You know, with this 3/4, I can throw him a long, long way on 15-pound line, but like 12-pound line, honestly, might be better. Main reason I didn't go with 10 or 12 is because we're catching like 7-pounders, and I try to get away with the heaviest line possible, because when I hook one, I want to get him in the boat and get him in quick so I can weigh him and get back out there. Line size, I didn't think was a very big deal. I think 17 was probably your max on that deal. I don't like throwing them on anything bigger than that. You don't get the natural flow with this hair jig. 15-pound Seaguar Invis X, 7.3 heavy Pro Series rod, my favorite. And I used to throw him on the Hex, the 7.2, but I figured out with this rod right here, it sounds like a heavy. This rod has more of a moderate action. I mean, it's got a good backbone to it, but it's kind of parabolic a little bit. That way, when I'm setting the hook on him, I'm not leaning so hard to where I may break him off. And you're not really wanting to set the hook into these fish. When he bites it, if you look on the video, right now I'm chunking the hair jig out there, and I'm letting him hit bottom, and I'm sitting there reeling him, and I'll pump him and I'll let him fall. Complete on slack line. 90% of the time, these fish were biting the hair jig on the fall, okay? Every now and then, when I would start to reel it, I'd feel one lock up with it. And what that is that fish is either A, sitting there looking at it, and as soon as it comes off the bottom, he just, bam, grabs it. Or whenever it's falling right in their face, and they come out and just eat it. They don't have to go a long way. They can get a big meal quick. That's the key. So, hook set. When you get a bite on a hair jig, for me, I do not like just boom, setting the hook like a jig. I don't like doing that, because a lot of times these fish, they're trying to get in there and fight over this bait. They'll nip at it 1 or 2 times. Sometimes you could tell in the video, I would set the hook and I'd lean into them and they'd miss it, and I'd let it fall and I'd reel it again, boom, and they eat it again. And you lean. If you set the hook, you pull it way away from them, you mess up the whole deal. So let that fish eat the bait. Keep in mind, they're trying to eat a shad. Like literally, if you let them eat this, it's probably gonna go all the way to their gullet. Like they're gonna eat it. Speaking of them eating it, I did catch a 7-pounder, and it was deep. Like if you watch the video, I had to reach all the way down in this 7.5 pounder's mouth. It was in his crushers. That's letting them eat it. When you get a bite on this bait, just lean into him. It's almost kind of similar like a topwater bite for me. Doink, Just lean into him. He's gonna set the hook on himself. That was the main reasons I was throwing a hair jig. High pressure, a lot of boats, a lot of boat traffic, a lot of fishermen. These fish have been out there for a short amount of time, not long, but like later in the year, I feel like this is gonna shine a lot more. There's more people casting at these fish. When I mean, you may pull up to like a community school. Now this is Tennessee River, this may not be on your lake, but 90% of the time, you gotta think what everyone else is doing. They're throwing crankbaits, they're throwing swim baits. This bait is something you can get a bite when they've seen a ton of baits, okay? This is very, very natural. That's the key. That was my setups. Pro Series 7.3 heavy, 15-pound fluorocarbon, 7-to-1 reel. I used to throw it on a 6.3. I like a 7.1 now because the main reason is when I do set the hook into them, I can catch up a lot of line quick and drive that hook in. I'm not sitting there reeling. I'm like, oh, he's got it up. No, I'm catching a lot of line up. That was my setups. That's how I throw a hair jig. Speaking of hair jigs, I may go throw one here in a minute for some spotted bass. I've caught, you know, fish on 1/2 ounce hair jigs, and I know there's gonna be a lot of comments. What was the name hair jig you was throwing? What was the brand hair jig? Guys, a hair jig's a hair jig. The one I got is a guy that hand ties them for me. It's just a buck hair jig. Somebody's blowing me up. Let's see who this is. Nope. Somebody probably about a car warranty. I don't really care about it. Anyway, buck hair jig. You got synthetic hair jigs. This is, I don't know what kind of hair this is. This may be puppy dog hair. I have no clue. No, it's got a few feathers in there. Chicken hair. I have no clue. Like a marabou jig, a very fine hair on those jigs. We're getting ready to go to St. Lawrence River coming up here soon. I'm gonna be throwing a hair jig up there. Is hair jigs the new deal? I don't know. For me, I like throwing hair jigs. Catches freaking biggins. That's my hair jig setup, guys. Had a ton of questions about it. Why was you throwing a hair jig? What colors? All right, so I'm gonna knock that out before we close this video out. Throw anything white color, anything shad color. This is a little more subtle. It isn't as loud as like a white. This is a little more subtle. So depending on your watercolor, if it's super clear, if it's dingy, throw that solid white one. Maybe add some chartreuse in it. Maybe get a marker, color the head on it, who knows. If it's really, really clear, I like a very subtle hair jig. Just natural color. Tell you on a hair jig, guys, check it out. That's like literally like 1947 technology. They were tying hair jigs in like 53. There was guys back then catching like 20-pounders. I don't know if he caught them on a hair jig or not, but I guaranteed he had some hair jigs in his box because it's been around for literally like 60 years, 70 years. Somebody comment below, let me know when the first hair jig bait was made because I have no clue. But this is like old technology, guys. This isn't new. These fish still bite baits that was made a long time ago. So, and big ones too. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Just a quick recap of why I was throwing a hair jig, my setups, how I reeled it, the colors on it, everything. So we dove into hair jigs, guys. I may shoot like a northern hair jig deal. Why they bite black marabou jigs, I have no clue about that, but we may shoot that here soon. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Go buy you some hair jigs. Go check them out. Reel them around. Doinky. Appreciate it. See you.